This video is brought to you by my latest book, How to Play Melodic Rock Lead Guitar, a comprehensive guide to doing exactly that, playing melodic rock lead guitar. This is not just some collection of scale patterns and tabs, although you do get plenty of those, but you also get an entire chapter on how to come up with your own licks, as well as video content, tutorials and demonstrations, loads of jam tracks, and all the way through I'm encouraging you to expand your fretboard knowledge and showing you how you can think in a more musical and melodic way. Check out the link in the description for more details. Hello chaps, welcome once again to John Robson Guitar Tuition. As always, I do hope you're well. It's Tuesday, which means a top 5 list is inbound, and well, as you've seen from the thumbnail and the title, I'm going to be talking about 5 people who went a long way towards shaping my musical tastes as I was growing up. I'm not talking about songwriters, musicians, rock stars though. Talking about the people who introduced me to songwriters, rock stars and musicians. Growing up as a kid and as an adolescent, the radio was always on, and many times, well, most times in fact, if not all the time, any new music that I encountered would be courtesy of some enlightened disc jockey. So that's what I'm talking about today, the 5 DJs who exposed me to new music, much of which I fell in love with. Let's have a look and see who they are.
Tommy Vance.
When I speak to friends in the USA, they find it a little bit difficult to comprehend that in the UK in the 70s and into the 80s, you just didn't really hear rock music on kind of mainstream radio. You had various sort of local radio stations, both BBC and independent, and basically they used to have a top 40 schedule, or there would be specialist genre themed kind of shows like about folk music or country or jazz. Never anything about rock though. Same with the national stations. You had, these were all BBC. You had Radio 1 top 40, BBC Radio 2, that was sort of post-war nostalgia radio, Radio 3 classical, and Radio 4 news and current affairs, no music at all. Okay, but there were certain little oases in the desert, and one of these was between 10 p.m. and midnight on a Friday, when this chap, Tommy Vance, on Radio 1 used to host the Friday Rock Show. It's where I heard rock music that wasn't kind of creeping into the charts. This is, I guess, probably the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s. Yeah, Rainbow were having hits and Judas Priest were having hits, and because they were getting into the top 40, things like Since You've Been Gone and Living After Midnight would get some airplay. But Tommy's show, you used to hear album tracks. You used to hear vintage rock, kind of from the early 70s. I think it's probably where I first started hearing Led Zeppelin. I definitely remember hearing Kashmir for the first time on Tommy's show. No way would that get any kind of airplay during the drive time show or something. I first heard Pink Floyd album tracks. I'd heard that my first exposure to Pink Floyd was when, perversely, they had the last Christmas #1 of the 1970s in the UK with Another Brick in the Wall. But I didn't know what any of the album tracks sounded like until I started, I stumbled across Tommy's show. Tommy's sadly no longer with us, but he leaves a fantastic legacy. I look back on those Friday evening. It was one of those shows that even when I was kind of old enough to go out to the pub, on a Friday, you'd make sure you were home for 10 o'clock because you didn't want to miss the Friday rock show. So yes, thanks for the music, Tommy. You did a lot to enlighten me and turn me on to rock music. Next,
Whispering Bob Harris.
This one might be a bit of a stretch, but Whispering Bob Harris did have a radio show, but I remember him from, as you can see, the sign in the background there, a TV show called The Old Grey Whistle Test. It was on the sort of BBC's second TV channel, BBC Two, and it was always on late at night, and it's unusual for me to see Bob in his 70s garb there in colour, because all my memories are in black and white, because I was watching him on a black and white portable in my bedroom with a little kind of single earpiece in, the little wired earpiece. And I mean, great live sessions on the Old Grey Whistle Test. Bands like Lindisfarne, The Who, ZZ Top, loads and loads of interviews as well with people like I remember an interview with Mick Ronson on there that was because I didn't know who he was at the time, but I thought he was an interesting guy, and he played a bit, and I thought this is really, this is really good. It's the essence of what music broadcasting was for me. It was. I would discover new stuff. Incidentally, the Old Grey Whistle Test, if you're not aware of the origin of that name, the Brill Building in New York, the song factory, essentially where people like Carole King and Neil Sedaka would punch the clock, go in at 9 to 5 and write songs. The doormen at the Brill Building all wore grey livery, and they were all kind of gentlemen of a certain age, elderly retired chaps. And because of the grey livery and the fact they were called the Old Greys, and if a song was catchy enough for them to be heard whistling, it had passed the Old Grey Whistle Test, which I think is just a fantastic little bit of trivia. But live sessions, fascinating interviews, and great music, all courtesy of Whispering Bob Harris on the Old Grey Whistle Test, who then went on to have radio shows that I always used to follow. This is where I first encountered him, and many fond memories of that TV show. Next,
Alan Freeman.
Yes, Alan Fluff Freeman. Used to present all kinds of radio shows. He used to do Top 40 countdown on a Sunday at one point. But, again, he was another one of these chaps that I think it was on, the show I remember him best for, and his career went all the way back to 60s Radio Luxembourg, Pirate Radio, all that kind of scene. But the show I remember him best for was I think it was on a Saturday evening when, he would, again, just play the more esoteric rock. Whereas Tommy Vance was always, kind of playing on the Friday rock show, he'd be playing kind of what you'd call mainstream rock. Fluff would always play like Emerson, Lake and Palmer album tracks and obscure B-sides from, Japanese import singles and he was incredibly knowledgeable about his topic. He's one of those people that you'd go and watch them give a talk because of their the way that they could just hold an audience in their hand. That was Alan Freeman, again, like Tommy Vance, sadly no longer with us, but just a taste for the slightly left field. Obscure stuff that he would give an airing to. And again, not saying I liked everything he played, but I did used to like listening to his show because I'm thinking, well, I might learn something. And there you go. There he is, Alan Freeman. Also, he was parodied in, what was that, Harry Enfield skit, Smashy and Nicey, the two old DJs, and he was good enough to take part in one of those skits as well, which was quite fun. So there you go, Alan Freeman. Many happy memories, like all of these DJs I'm talking about here. Let's see who's next.
Johnny Walker.
Johnny Walker, again another one that's shuffled off this mortal coil. Been around forever. I knew the name mainly because it's easy to remember. When your name is the same as a brand of whiskey, then it sort of sticks in the mind. But again, going all the way back to the Radio Caroline days. If you're not sure what that is, if you're outside the UK, just watch that old movie, The Boat That Rocked, about pirate radio. Well, he was one of the real life DJs on that kind of station based on a ship offshore, and then he kind of started a career with the BBC. And again, it was in the early 90s that I remember he used to have a Saturday afternoon show. Saturday afternoon, Radio 1 used to kick out all of the teeny boppers and, play some serious, good music. Again, album tracks, rock music, singles that wouldn't get airplay on like the drive time show or the breakfast show or the kind of afternoon housewives favourites kind of shows. And I first heard the Travelling Wilburys on his show. I first heard the band Thunder on his show. It was shortly before, I think, was it shortly before or shortly after? I can't remember. But it was around about the same time that they did a fantastic set at what was then called Monsters of Rock. It's now called Download. But I heard them, I think it was probably the first time there where they came in and did a live session. Loads and loads of great stuff. Again, album tracks, obscure stuff that you just didn't kind of get the chance to hear anywhere else. It's a common theme running through all of these choices here, and it did do a lot to educate me musically. And again, a very knowledgeable chap who could, kind of talk for ages about the history of this band and how it cross-pollinated with that band, like that Rock Family Trees kind of TV show that used to be on. Well, he had all of that kind of up here. He was like a walking musical Google, I suppose. Lots of great memories, lots of great music I discovered thanks to Johnny's, I think it was called the Saturday Session or something like that. Show. It used to be on from about 1 p.m. through till 6, and I think it was after that the Alan Freeman show used to come on that we spoke about earlier. Yeah, thanks for the memories, Johnny, and let's see who's last on the list.
Terry Wogan.
The Togmeister himself, Terry Wogan. Terry used to host the breakfast show on BBC Radio 2, the sort of post-war nostalgia station, and that was always on when I was a kid. In growing up, it was what my parents used to listen to. Terry was, I think he could have made a career as a stand-up comedian as well as being a DJ, because just some of his quips and dry wit that he would come out with in the links between the songs. And I don't know, I'm not sure how much of the music that he played was pre-selected and just kind of, he was given a playlist by the station and just, told this is what you got to go with, or whether it was, his own choice. I suspect it was a mixture of both, because just for one song alone that he played that I'm eternally grateful for discovering, it's Goodbye to Love by the Carpenters. He used to play that almost as often as he used to play the traffic news or the weather report. I don't ever remember that song being a big hit single. I mean, on Top of the World, Jambalaya, even Calling Occupants of Interplanetary Craft. Remember that one? That Christmas song that the Carpenters did. But I don't remember Goodbye to Love being a big hit single for them. If I've got that wrong, please let me know. But I certainly heard it for the first time on Terry Wogan's breakfast show, and unlike every other DJ that ever kind of has a long song with a big guitar solo at the end, he didn't talk over the guitar solo. He just used to, kind of let it play out. And actually, I think it was him that announced, the genius guitar work of Mr. Tony Peluso there. First time I'd ever heard of Tony Peluso. And there were other things like that as well. Again, he wouldn't shy away from playing an album track on his show if he thought it was worthy of an airing on a breakfast show. That's not typically the kind of thing that you get. He was on the radio when I was a kid, and then he shortly before he sadly passed away, he was also on for a few years. Then I think Terry, when did Terry pass away? I think it was probably 2016 or 17, but he was working pretty much right up until the end. And yeah, I suspect I'm not the only one whose musical tastes he had an influence on. So there you go, folks. Those are the 5 radio DJs, the people who introduced me, as I said earlier, to the songwriters and rock stars and musicians that I grew to love. I'm sure you probably have a list of your own, and you know where to leave that down in the comments. Hope you've enjoyed this little trip down memory lane with me, and you know, I did try and find some examples of each of these DJs, but some of it was a little bit hard to come by. So I'll let you kind of carry out your own search, or maybe you don't need to because you remember them all as well as I do. But that's the video for today, folks. As I say, I hope you've enjoyed it. If that's the case, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell if you haven't already done so. And why not drop me a like as well while you're at it? And don't forget the live stream every Friday, 5 p.m. UK time. Beer and chat on a Friday. Great way to kick off the weekend. I'd love to see you there if you can make it. But for now, I'll bid you all a good day and say thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your time. Look after yourselves, folks. Stay well, stay safe, and above all, stay sane. Bye for now.